It's been nearly 20 years since the release of Saw 1, and this film brings us all the way back to the beginning. This is our official sawx review. Welcome home, horror fans. I'm Zoe.
And I'm Adam.
And the time has finally arrived.
It is here, our Saw 10 review.
Our Saw 10 review is here. We've seen the film.
We've seen the film now, actually twice before we
twice.
Recorded this.
A lot of thoughts.
A lot of thoughts. It's been a long road for those who have followed us. This is obviously very important to us, and we've talked about Saw a lot in the last month. It has been a long road, and it's finally here. It's been very, very exciting, and this review is spoiler-free, so...
Spoiler-free, so stick around to the end. Nothing will be spoiled throughout this video.
Fear not.
You're in a safe place.
That's right, and of course, we have a lot of thoughts, so jumping straight into it, we are, of course, going to talk about the man himself, Tobin Bell. This is...
Mr. John Kramer.
The man of the show.
The star of the show.
The star of the show. Now, this film is... Look, it's an amazing film. We better just say that.
Let's just get it out here from the get-go.
We're just going to say it's an amazing film.
The film is fantastic.
The film is great.
Yeah. Let's not say too much more about it because we've got a lot to talk about. Tobin Bell's performance stood out like crazy.
He elevates this film.
He does.
Dramatically.
To the next level. He is... Unlike he is in any other film, any other Saw film, his performance in this film sticks out so much. And I think it has a lot to do with how the film's written. He does have more emotional scenes, as I'm sure you guys have seen in the trailer and been able to put together. But having these scenes to act out for him, he killed it. Yeah,
he's clearly not just the star of the show. Obviously, this film is all about John Kramer, which is the first Saw film.
It's the John Kramer film.
To be about John Kramer. And you can see for Tobin Bell, this is his life's work on screen here.
It's unfolding.
He has basically taken this role incredibly seriously. He obviously, John Kramer means a lot to Tobin Bell. And we see performance here, like this is an award-winning performance from Tobin Bell.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're not exaggerating.
No, without a doubt.
At all.
He is the star of the show.
Yeah, and this film really shows a very frail John Kramer, an unwell John Kramer. This John Kramer basically is somebody that we haven't seen before. It's a version of him that really sort of takes us into his mindset, into his psyche, and the performance that Tobin gives us is so beautiful. Like, it honestly really makes us feel for his character.
Tear-inducing.
Yeah.
There are multiple times, specifically towards the start of the film, where you feel the tears coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's all because of his performance.
Absolutely.
The situation that he's put in, but just how he portrays the real hurt and the real sadness of the reality of what's happening throughout the film. It's just...
Yeah.
Wow.
It's impressive. It's incredibly impressive. He looks very frail. They have done him up. He's very good. He has the little shakes here and there. He looks very ill. As we know, John has cancer. We know he's at the end of his life. And that's what the story's all about at the end of the day. This is the crux of Saw. But we really get to see a side of John Kramer which has never been seen, and it's exciting to see that. He's obviously the hero of this story.
He is.
He's started off as, let's say, a villain, I want to say.
Yeah, well, he is the villain of the Saw franchise. Yeah. He always has been. One of the many.
Yeah.
But, where the Saw franchise all began, and he's been the main villain since 2004. It's all we've ever known. But in this film, nearly 20 years later, you get him as the hero.
He's become the hero.
He has become the hero.
Yeah.
You feel bad for him. You start to understand as the film unfolds, wow, I get it. Like, okay, maybe not to this extent, but you really do start to feel for him, and you really start to think, I don't even know what I would do in this position. And it does bring out these thoughts about how you could probably do some harm too if you were put in the spot that he's put in.
Let's not go too far.
Well, come on. I mean, he was robbed.
Yeah. Oh, look, at the end of the day, yes. We're not going to go too far into the stories because this is spoiler-free, but I'm sure most people know the basic plot of the film, of course.
A very sick man is conned into spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on a miracle cure.
He's desperate. He's a desperate man at the end of his rope. He's been offered a lifeline, as anybody would. He's taken that option. And Tobin's performance is just astounding. It's really one of the things in the film. Like, the whole film is shot well, looks phenomenally done. Like, the casts are all great. The music is haunting. The whole thing is a beautiful production. And this is on a low budget. This is, I mean, most Saw films are pretty low budget. I think the budget for this was 10 million, it was said.
I think, roughly.
And this looks like a film that was way higher than that. This competes with these big budget movies. In fact, it looks better than a lot of the big budget movies we see today. But out of everything, Tobin's performance is definitely the highlight of this film.
Yeah. I think there's many highlights, but if I had to pick my one, it would be Tobin's performance. He
steals a show every time he's on the screen. You just watch it no matter what. And on that note, for this film, this is the longest film in the Saw franchise. It doesn't feel that way.
It flies.
Yeah.
It absolutely flies. As you said at the start, we've seen it twice now, and both times I'm like, no, like, don't be over. I want more.
That's the thing. It's never a dull moment.
There isn't.
This movie is captivating always, and that is an absolute testament to Tobin Bell's performance. And we would be amiss without mentioning, of course, Shawnee Smith.
Shawnee Smith as Amanda Young, back in her prime.
Back in her prime. So we get to see them back together, and we have these great shots of their relationship.
Absolutely. I think the thing that we were probably robbed of in Saw 3 was the relationship between John and Amanda. It sort of didn't do them justice at all. It's not what you sort of imagined for them. John is quite distant towards Amanda throughout the whole of Saw 3. So to get this film, Saw 10, and have their relationship blossom, and you start to understand why Amanda loves him so much and why their relationship is so strong, I think it's amazing to see.
Yeah.
It really is.
She gets some really emotional scenes with him.
Absolutely.
And this film certainly sort of ducks and weaves between some trap plot and some plot between those two. So we get some nice intimate moments between the two characters. And it just works so well because you're never bored, you know. The trap scenes are entertaining, and the actual victims of the traps are also great actors. And then we have some shots between Tobin and Shawnee, and they're great too. So you never like, oh, take me back to the traps or take me back to Jigsaw. You're really enjoying both, and obviously they're very intertwined, the scenes.
Absolutely.
But the film is never a dull moment, and there's not a weak point in the whole film too. So really phenomenal from both at the end of the day. And of course, we also need to mention the main villain of this character.
The main villain, which was surprisingly more of a villain than I thought she'd be. Cecilia.
Yeah.
Cecilia Peterson.
One of the things that the trailer really probably doesn't give away, and we're not going to give it away too much either, of course, but the villain of this film, Cecilia, who is in the trailer, she definitely comes across more evil in the movie.
Oh, for sure. And I think that the trailer was not shy on giving us a lot of information about the film. So to have her be the character she was in the film was a massive surprise.
Yeah.
It was, a lot more intense than I was expecting.
She's great too. The actress is fantastic in this role
She did an amazing job.
And the character is really evil. Yeah. She's really evil. Yeah. I would go so far as to say probably the most evil character in the franchise.
Honestly, I think she'd be pretty close to it.
Just from a moral standpoint, at the end of the day. And, and this clearly defines this film as Tobin being the hero, the actual
really does help
hero, and her being an actual villain. There's he's not the villain anymore. He's not the big bad killer. We have an actual villain who's very evil, and they make it very clear on that. And he is built out to be this big anti-hero, as it were. So it's fun because obviously, we're all there to see John Kramer, and we're all fans of John Kramer, and this film solidifies him as a proper anti-hero.
It does, and not only that, but I think it definitely shows some emotion in Amanda as well, that she isn't a cold-hearted killer, that she does believe in John's methods of rehabilitation, and I really like that. There's one scene in particular where that is demonstrated pretty well, and I think that we needed that, and when we first saw it, I actually said that I wasn't sure how much of the story we actually needed. Whether John was established as the hero or not, we're all still going to love him. Yeah. But the second rewatch, I think that we needed it for his character, and we definitely needed it for Shawnee's character as well.
Yeah, this is a very character-defining film. This is going back, obviously. It's, between Saw 1 and Saw 2, and we know the characters pretty well. Like, we get to see a lot of these characters in Saw 2 and Saw 3, a lot of, decent bits of John and decent bits of Amanda. But this film takes those two characters and it really exemplifies their traits.
Absolutely.
It's not some sort of fly-by-night script. This is them, like 100%, and it delves further in and it gives us more of these two characters and it feels like so correct for them. Yeah. And it's so much to the point that we've all known John to have this philosophy or this ideology of, I'm not a murderer, I don't kill people, they're just tests and all that sort of stuff. This film really pushes that. Like, if you've ever thought, John's just crazy and he's killing people nonstop, he's a bastard, this film is the antithesis of that. This film will literally show you traps time and time again where he is happy to let people actually survive them. And once they do, he's certainly not out to mean them any harm. He's like, cool, you beat your trap, you deserve to live. Yeah. And this really tries to drive that point home where other films haven't so much, Obviously, he did with Amanda and a few other people, like, I guess, help them out after they survived their traps. But this is, like, really pushing that point.
Yeah, you see it all unfold.
Yeah.
There's no second guessing.
This is putting his ideology, like, first and foremost. So it kind of makes him out to be a bit saner than probably some of the other movies do. He's less of just a straight up torturer, but he's like really got an idea here. And of course the people in the traps, they did him wrong, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So either way, they still deserved it. But they really pushed it well. And speaking of traps.
Yeah, on that note, let's talk about the traps of Saw 10.
You all want to hear about them, so.
Yeah. I have many thoughts about the traps of Saw 10. Yeah. A lot of thoughts. They were awesome.
They're awesome traps.
I think that as we saw in the interview between the directors and the behind the scenes, they really did try and push the traps this time to make it seem like it's something John is capable of putting together.
Yep.
To not have it seem so insane that someone would come up with this. And I think that they nailed that. Yeah,
like they certainly did, and I think that they had a lot to live up to as well. Obviously, it's a big deal. They knew the audiences were expecting a lot here. The cool thing about the traps is that they correlate pretty heavily to what the person was doing wrong.
Yes.
Again, without going into it too much. We've seen a lot of the traps in the trailer, especially, and you can kind of tell, but just by looking at them, this person was sort of scamming this thing, and therefore the trap is to do with this. They're very correlated to why he's judging them, basically, and that's cool too. So there's a lot of that going on. But the traps themselves, are they gory? Yes. They're very gory.
They are.
Some more gory than others.
Yep.
Again, you probably have a bit of an idea from the trailer on that one. Are they satisfying to watch? They are.
They are.
Are they survivable? Questionable. But I would have to say they are, in this film.
I think that might be a hot take. I think it might be a hot take.
I know you had an issue a little bit with some of the traps being a bit unfair.
I definitely think I can think of two in particular that were extremely unfair. And obviously we can't really go too much into it now because it's a spoiler-free review.
Well, from the trailer, we can tell you thought that the razor wire trap overall was a bit unfair.
Was very unfair. And the brain surgery trap, I believe,
again in the trailer,
was unfair.
Yeah. Only because there was a secondary component to them.
There was a secondary component. It wasn't just as simple as cut off your leg or take out a piece of your brain.
Yeah.
There was just... I know that he gave them adequate time. Like, he does give them 3 minutes each, which I think for John is crazy.
More than usual.
That's very, very lenient. But there were multiple factors to how these two in particular, Valentina and Matteo, could survive their trap.
They're tough traps.
They're tough traps just on their own by themselves, but to add in multiple elements of having them walk out of these traps alive, I just didn't think it was very fair.
Yeah.
Dr. Gordon has to cut off his freaking ankle in the first Saw, and that's enough. I don't think we need another element.
Maybe, but I would say that in the very least, they are survivable, which is, this is the point of sort of the film in this one. But also, like, how many of the traps of the years haven't been very fair? Like, so many of them.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it's more so that I guess it feels kind of contradictory at times, like seeing people who are put in, I would say, I guess, more lenient traps, and then having John rush to their aid afterwards, and really show his ideology like unfold on screen. But then having traps that are as tough as he puts some people in is just a bit, so it's one or the other. You're going to make it really, really difficult, or you're going to be really, really nice about it.
I guess that's the other question too, because this film is also about him finding his feet as Jigsaw a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's early days, and as we know from his early traps from the other Saw movies, we had Cecil with the face knife trap, and we had the barbed wire traps. These are some of the early ones. So he had very rudimentary traps early days, and I think that this film does a great job of still sort of
keeping
working.
him simple, and but still effective.
Yeah, he's still working out these sorts of things. So from the trailer, again, just to say we're avoiding spoilers, we do see that he is not wearing a mask, in some of these things. He's sort of not hiding from his victims. So this is still early days, to the point that maybe he's not so concerned about hiding his identity. Maybe going forward he changes his mind on that.
Yeah.
And Billy, who we see in the trailer wheel out a bunch of stuff, is kind of more of a prop. He's not necessarily sort of talking to the victims and stuff like that.
Billy doesn't have any speaking lines.
It's interesting. So there's a few things I think that this film is just great as being this sort of like, here's John in this sort of flux moment where he's learning, to be the Jigsaw that we know later. Whether or not he gets maybe less lenient as time goes on, because this film definitely shows him as somebody who's happy to test people and want them to live.
I think less lenient maybe, but definitely as the films go on, I think they're dependent on the disciples who are carrying out his legacy as well. Yeah. In later films you have Hoffman and also Amanda in earlier films carrying out his legacy. And they're not always fair.
No,
and I
course.
think that's mainly what you see play out. In this film, at least, it does feel very, John did this and John came up with this, and it's fair to an extent.
Yeah. Well, I think he's fairer than the rest of them.
Definitely.
Because he created this ideology, and I think that the other apprentices sort of, for whatever reason, they sort of joined him, but they certainly didn't run it as well as he did.
No.
No one's John Kramer except for John Kramer. But this film specifically is very good at making you sort of start to believe his ideology better than the other ones. Because the other ones, you're like, I don't know if he really believes in this ideology much, or he just like killing people.
Yeah.
But this one, you definitely get it very, very strong. He's really pushed out to be an anti-hero in this, and you really do root for him.
You do.
In this as well.
You do. Yeah, absolutely.
You feel for him, you feel for the people around him, and you see him as the good guy.
You do.
He's basically setting these people up to die, and you're like, hey, go John. It's quite interesting, and I'd have a hard time. Like, obviously it's gory, so not everyone's going to, be able to sit through it if you're not a horror fan. But outside of that, I'd say anyone would have a hard time watching this movie and not root for John.
Yeah.
Even though he's a serial killer, pretty much. So it is an interesting way to look at it. But the film certainly succeeds in what it's trying to do, in trying to give a movie which shows John and even Amanda in this light. And you've got to give it to Kevin, who's, he's kind of been working on Saw films for about 20 years now.
Incredible. I am so happy with him, and I'm just hoping and praying that he gets his shot again for a future Saw film, because he's killed it. He killed it. I'm so proud.
I think after directing this, he's probably going to open a few doors. Kevin Grudert, obviously, like he's edited so many of the Saw movies. He's directed a few of them, but this one, I think he's really tried hard on.
Nail in the coffin, bang. Yeah. He's killed it. And I don't think there's much else to say other than he's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I hope he's back for many more Saw films, because he's in good hands.
Yeah, and I think that this film, the moment when it's really quite a different type of Saw movie, like a more mature and like grown-up version for Kevin, is when the title card
I was going to say the title card, and I was like, I hope he says the title card, because 100%, the way that the film opens straight away, instantly different film.
It's very just like, it looks high-end, but also like it's refined, it's dramatic, and as a lot of people say, it looks like an A24 film.
It does look like an A24 film.
This is what people are feeling. It's feeling like low budget / independent, but just nice and clean, and like, low budget, but also looks high production.
Yeah.
And takes itself very seriously, because a lot of Saw movies are not so serious, maybe, let's say. This film takes itself very seriously.
Yeah.
It's all just shot and edited so well. It's like a proper movie. But Kevin's really tried hard at this one. He can never go back to the cheesy intros with the weird animations and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
This is a very, very legit film. So we're excited to see what Kevin does next.
Absolutely.
After this movie, for sure. And I guess a couple of final points that we want to tick off is like, I think that this movie is probably a bit of a send-off for John Kramer. I get the feeling a little bit.
Again, no spoilers, but the last frame of the film before the credits roll is very much, I guess you could say, is the send-off.
Well, I think the ending of the movie is something that, you got to question, are we ever going to see, this is a prequel obviously, but will they ever show us more of these characters? Is this the last time we go back and tell this story? Because it is just kind of a nice little ending for the characters.
It's a happy ending.
Yeah,
it is a happy ending. It feels like a great send off.
Yeah.
And if they were to, like, say for example, not bring Tobin or Shawnee back, I would be completely satisfied with how their journeys ended in this film.
Yeah, they can't just keep bringing back forever, right?
No, exactly.
They've
got to stop beating the dead horse at some point.
It's
not a dead horse. It's not a dead horse. We loved seeing them back. I think that they did a phenomenal job together.
Yeah, absolutely.
As always.
Absolutely. And I think that, maybe it's just that maybe Kevin and Tobin felt like if this was the last chance to pull those characters out, that we wanted to have a nice little send-off,
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a good question where they go next from this,
Many thoughts about that as well.
Many thoughts. At the end of the day, I will say we are going to have a big spoiler-filled discussion coming your way very shortly.
Absolutely.
We didn't want to do heaps of spoilers in the review because we want to be able to let everyone be able to see it. But stay tuned very shortly for us unleashing everything and how we really feel about all the things that happen. That's going to be very, very soon.
There are many things. There are things that we didn't even touch on.
We are trying to hold back here because we don't want to talk about things that have happened, but we have a lot to say about things that have happened. So that's going to be the video you're really probably going to want to see. But we don't want to spoil it for you. So
if you don't want to watch spoilers, just try and stay away.
Avoid that one. That'll be very clear which video that is. But I will also say, was this film satisfactory for the viewers? Was this the movie we came to see in Saw 10? How do we feel about that?
I'm gonna outline it by my viewings.
Yep.
The first time I watched it, no, I was not satisfied at all.
Yep.
Watching it again today, sober, definitely.
I think the thing is, like for me, watching it on the premiere, first viewing, love the movie. Like the movie is a great standalone film. A lot of people say this is a great movie because if you, especially are a first-time viewer, if you haven't seen many of the Saw movies, you can go and watch this film and you're fine. This film is great because it's great for new people or maybe you haven't seen a Saw movie in 10 years.
You don't have to have seen any Saw
That's
film.
right. It's a great standalone film. A lot of people make this point. And so what they've really succeeded here is making a film that does stand alone perfectly. And of course, some people may have possibly expected something a little bit different to what it was.
Yeah. Because it is a standalone film, you don't get maybe some of the closure that you hoped for.
It doesn't answer a lot of questions from the Saw franchise.
It doesn't. I didn't
want
to.
What you're hoping for.
It doesn't answer. I'm going to say close to any questions in the Saw franchise, which I probably wasn't happy with the first time around. And I think that that's why I had my main gripe with it, why I was so unsure about how to feel. Second time around, knowing what I was in for, loved it. I thought the film was incredible. There's so much to spot on the second viewing as well, knowing where it's headed. So for someone who was saying yesterday, that I was going to go back to my hotel room and cry because it's not what I wanted, to now be saying I think that it could possibly be one of the best films in the entire Saw franchise is insane. It's an insane difference.
I think you just had to take a moment to just have a rethink, have a refresh of it.
Just breathe. Do some breathing exercises.
Because if you are going to see this film to expect to have it add a lot to the Saw franchise, maybe answer some questions, maybe see some things we didn't see, it's not that film. It's just a really great standalone Saw story, which really sort of defines Jigsaw and Amanda more than ever. And we get to know them a bit better. We get to see them and do some new things. it doesn't add anything in terms of like the large overall, because Saw's got a lot going on in terms of story.
Yeah.
It's kind of a good thing because Saw's so convoluted now anyway. Like, you know, if you're expecting to see all these new apprentices arrive or this and, you know, crazy story.
What happened to Dr. Gordon?
You know, so many people
Is Adam
thinking,
alive?
You know, just...
Yeah.
We're not here to answer questions here. We're just here to have a great story and a great film, and that's what it is. You know, this is and like I said, we've both seen it twice now, and we loved it on the second viewing. So in terms of rewatchability, it's definitely very much there. But in terms of satisfactory levels, I think I would just say this film does leave you wanting more in a good way. Like,
yeah, it is a good way. It's definitely. Can everyone go see this movie so it makes money so I can have another Saw film?
This movie's going to make money.
It is going to make money.
Yeah.
It looks incredible.
It looks incredible, but also it's done on a crazy shoestring budget for such a big release. The hype around it's huge, and the reviews have been very positive.
And also, no Paranormal Activity to compete with.
You have to bring that up. But yeah, it is definitely going to leave you wanting more, and you are going to sit there and just think to yourself, I can't wait till they make the next one. You know, again, we have a lot of thoughts about what the next one might be, so stay tuned for that. But certainly, we walked out of the cinema going, "All right, put the next one on."
Yep. Okay. Does anyone have the script for Saw 11? Can I read it?
You know, so in terms of what they're going to do in the future, wow. I mean,
the possibilities are endless.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
But our final thoughts are. We loved the film, of course.
Absolutely.
It was an absolute it was an absolute blast to watch it, and I think that you guys will absolutely love it too. You know, we know you're all Saw fans because we do nothing but Saw content, so you must be watching this if you like Saw. This is definitely going to be a great film for you guys to go and enjoy, and it's what you've been waiting years to see. Especially since it's been a long time since we've seen like a Saw movie, not Jigsaw or Spiral.
This is what Jigsaw should have been.
I mean, in the sense that, it's a good sequel.
It's a great sequel.
it's
a great
sequel. Prequel. But it's always what everyone's wanted, just lots of John Kramer, right? Like, let's actually have lots of John, and everyone realized that, so that's why we have this film. I mean, that's pretty much it from us, guys. We are going to film our full spoiler discussion. So that will be coming very shortly. So if you want to know more, if you have already seen it, either way, you're going to love our video when we break everything down.
I know, I'm going to love it. I have so much to say.
There's been a lot going on, so there's a lot to talk about in terms of what happens in this film. It's very, very exciting.
The surprises.
Yes. So we've tried to be very tame. You might have even sensed that we're trying to hold back a little bit because we're trying to avoid saying anything that's going to annoy anybody. Otherwise, just know it's great. It's a really great movie. You're going to love it. Rush out and go see it, and then come back and watch our spoiler discussion as soon as you have. All right?
Yep.
And we will see you soon, guys.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Game over.